Film adaptations of Paradise Lost. I'm Dayon.
I'm Tyler.
I'm Soha.
I'm Ryan.
I'm Logan.
Alright, so no, there's nothing in That's So Semi show about Paradise Lost, but imagine you're watching the show and you click on your remote and you suddenly transform yourself and you're hanging out with Fez and Kelso. And that's kind of like what Pleasantville is about, so that's what Tom's going to explain.
Okay, so the movie Pleasantville is basically about two teenagers living in the real world, going to school like regular teenagers. But one of them, David, watches this show called Pleasantville, and he's very obsessed with it. One day, his TV repair guy comes into his house and gives him a remote. Once he uses this remote, he and his sister Jennifer are transported into Pleasantville, living the lives of Bud and Mary Sue. It's like they've been living them all along. Now, Pleasantville is a utopian society where everything is perfect, and everything is in black, white, and gray. And I mean like really black, white, and gray. So yeah, everything there is perfect, nothing bad ever happens, and everything is swell. They don't even miss basketball shots. But then Mary Sue does something that starts bringing color into Pleasantville, and Pleasantville starts to change.
Alright, and Pleasantville relates to Paradise Lost. Pleasantville is very similar to Paradise. Like you said, nothing ever goes wrong. Firefighters' job is to save kittens out of trees. Like, nothing ever goes wrong. And also the citizens are very innocent. They seem very happy, but that's just because they don't really know what's going on in life. And every day they have the same routine. And another similarity is Adam and Eve are very comparable to David and Jennifer. Both Adam and David are kind of like the more powerful. They're kind of in control in both of these, genres. And also Jennifer and Eve are similar because they're both the first ones to sin and cause destruction in each respective movie.
Okay, so the first change that's noticed in Pleasantville before the act of sin is Skip, which is one of the characters in the show. In the show, comes up to David or Bud to ask him if he can take Mary Sue out on a date. Now, David doesn't think that this is a good idea because, well, Mary Sue's not herself.
Skip? I don't think it's a real good time for that right now.
What do you mean?
Well, what I mean is, Mary Sue's a little different lately.
She won't go out with me?
No, hey, I didn't say that. It's just that right now she's...
I don't know what I'd do if she wouldn't go out with me.
And this causes everyone to freak out because, well, this doesn't usually happen. And so that's when David realizes that he has to keep everything intact, and so he allows Skip to take Mary Sue out on a date.
And the first sin happens when they go on the date. Mary Sue has sex with Skip, and sex happens in Pleasantville, but only for the purposes of like reproducing and having children. There's no such thing as like lustful sex. So when this happens, the first like color is seen in Pleasantville, and this rose turns red, which is significant to Paradise Lost because like the apple is red. So I think that's like an illusion the filmmaker was making. Alright, and then now we go from Mary Sue being Eve to kind of her falling into Satan's role. She tells her mother, whose name is Batty, that she's had sex for the first time and like lives like great or whatever. And then Batty is like I said, sex is only for reproducing. She doesn't really know of its pleasures. So Mary Sue convinces her to pleasure herself for the first time. And when she does, like she turns from black and white into color. And the tree in front of their house turns on fire, and you can compare this to Paradise Lost as like the tree of knowledge for Batty, because like as soon it's like symbolizes how when Eve eats the fruit, Batty gains color, and she doesn't want to be like her typical role in the show. She doesn't want to be the 1950s housewife who cooks and cleans. Like she goes and pursues her own interests and passions after, the whole shebang.
Now, a very important scene in the movie that the director tried to emphasize a lot was when when Batty changes color and her husband calls out for her, but she's afraid to go outside. Now, this I feel like he links it to Paradise Lost when Adam and Eve, after they've had fruit from the tree of knowledge and they've had lustful sex, the first thing they do is they cover themselves because they feel ashamed of being naked. In this scene,
You ran back?
She's very ashamed to go out and meet her husband because she's in color. So Bud gets this idea that he can cover her up with makeup because the makeup is still gray, black, or white.
Here, give me your cheek.
So this scene was a minute and a half long, where it could have been 20 seconds long, because the director was trying to stress how ashamed she is and link it back to Paradise Lost.
Is it working? Yes.
Another similarity is comparing the TV repairman to God. The TV repairman in Pleasantville is the guy who first brings Mary Sue and Bud into Pleasantville, and that's kind of like God. He's the one who brought Adam and Eve into the paradise, into the garden. And also, the TV repairman gets mad when Mary Sue and Bud start changing things, and there starts to be color, just as God gets mad in Paradise Lost. He comes upset when Adam and Eve don't obey him and sin.
Now, there are different reasons that someone can change color in Pleasantville, but the main reasons you see are violence, lust, anger, temptation, and desire. So violence happens, it's seen when Bud tries to protect his mother, Betty, from being raped by 5 guys. So he punches someone, and it's probably the first punch he's ever laid in his life, and that changes his color. Lust is seen when Betty pleasures herself, and she changes color. Anger is seen towards the end of the movie when the mayor gets angry at Bud because he's changing Pleasantville, so he yells at him, and that causes him to change color. And then all the other characters, when they fall into temptation or desire, that's when they change color.
Alright, so gaining knowledge is really the biggest thing we could connect to Paradise Lost. When the citizens of Pleasantville gain color, it signifies them gaining knowledge, and after this, they're kind of truly happy, because before everyone was just living their lives like typical 1950s. Everyone does what they're supposed to do. But when they change color and gain knowledge about what's really going on, that's when they start becoming truly happy.
So Mr. Johnson, he's a key character in the movie. He's the burger guy place, and he doesn't know anything except flipping burgers, and it's just a routine that he lives on every single day. And then when Bud starts to introduce change to him, he realizes that he actually enjoys painting. And so he starts to look for all these different colors, all these different paintings, and he starts to paint different pictures. He even paints Betty as a naked woman. And this signifies him gaining knowledge as he learns about all the different colors in the world that he can use. About the books, so at the beginning of the movie, Mary Sue stumbles into the library and then realizes that the covers of the books have a name on it, but when you open the book, it's completely blank. But then someone asks her about it, and she tries to tell them as much as she can from Huckleberry and Finn, and realizes that the books start to fill in. She tells Bud, and he continues the stories of Huckleberry and Finn, Catcher in the Rye, and goes on, and all the books start to fill in, and this signifies them gaining knowledge, and the books even start to gain color too.
Alright, and then more than just Pleasantville. In the beginning, one of the opening scenes, Mary Sue's in history class, and doing geography of Pleasantville, and there's 2 main streets that they're talking about, and she asks, what else is there to Pleasantville? And everyone is quiet now. There's nothing else. This kind of represents Adam and Eve when they're in paradise. They don't know what's really going on in the world. They think when they're in the Garden of Eden, that's it. But after the whole town has gained color, everyone realizes there's other places to go, and they start building roads, and there's signs to Springfield and stuff. And this kind of represents how Adam and Eve gain knowledge about the whole world after their kind of downfall and realize there's more to the world than just paradise.
Now, there are many other details in the movie that we can't actually talk about in just 8 to 10 minutes. There's even a scene of Bud eating an apple, which is very, very similar to Paradise Lost. But I do recommend you watch this movie, and watch it with the intent to connect it to Paradise Lost, which just makes it way more enjoyable. And let's just move on to the next movie.
So now we're going to move on to the not-so-distant future, really, with the sci-fi classic Blade Runner. So we'll start off with some background, a idea of the plot summary. So it takes place in November 2019, which really isn't that far off in retrospect, because the movie was created in the early 80s. So it takes place in futuristic Los Angeles, which in the movie is portrayed here. It's this dark, polluted, crowded place. It's depressing. There are people everywhere. No one's friendly. It just seems very depressing. And there's fire, shooting out of smokestacks. And so the main gist of the story is that the Tyrell Corporation has moved robot evolution into its next and greatest phase, which they call the Nexus 6 phase, which basically has created these androids that are indistinguishable from people. They're organic. They are as intelligent as regular people. They have superhuman strength, endurance, and agility. So they're basically superior to human beings in those senses. But they're used for slave labor on off-world colonies outside of Earth. And that's been going on for a while until revolts started occurring. So they had to retire the program because it was too dangerous. And they tried to get rid of as many replicants, which is what these androids were called, as they could. And any remaining replicants that couldn't be caught were sought out by Blade Runner units, which were created by the police to capture and retire any escaped replicants. And retire literally means kill, but they like to use that because it's a nice, blanket word. And so the plot of the movie begins when 4 replicants escape an off-world colony, and instead of running off into the depths of space to escape being hunted, they return to Earth for some reason. So the main character, Rick Decker, who is portrayed by Harrison Ford, is brought out of retirement because he's one of the best Blade Runners that has ever existed. He's brought out of retirement to seek out these 4 escaped replicants.
And on to some similarities to Paradise Lost. The replicants in the off-world colony can be compared to the rebel angels in heaven. They were exiled to off-world colonies to kind of isolate them because they mutinied. The rebel angels, after they mutiny, which can be compared to the fight in heaven, after they mutiny, they turn their eyes to Earth, just like Satan kind of returns to Earth to corrupt humans and to search, and the replicants return to Earth to search for their maker, which just to gain knowledge about themselves.
So there are some other similarities which you can see which are in close relation to Paradise Lost. So basically, as Ryan described, the city of Los Angeles, as you can see here, this is another picture. So this is the picture of depiction of hell in Paradise Lost by Milton. So at a first glance, you can see there is not much difference between the two. Both of them look very depressing and very violent, and this is it has been described like a sea of flames. And also there is destruction and chaos that is going on. So we can say that the setting of the entire film takes place in this sulphurous dark furnace, which is Milton's hell. So there's a close comparison between the setting of Paradise Lost and the setting of Blade Runner. Also in the scene, in the end of the scene, we can see that Batty has a dove in his hand, and the replicants have a lifespan of around 4 years. So he's about to die in the end of the film, and he has a dove in his hand, and he releases the dove. So as we can see in this scene. So this is basically, he has the dove in his hand and he's about to die, and he releases the dove. So this is a very biblical illusion, and we can see that the clouds are scattering out. So we can see that this is the first glance of light that we can see in the film. The entire film is really dark, and this is the first light that we can see, which is very similar to Milton invoking the Holy Spirit. So basically, Milton asks the Holy Spirit to shed some light, and this is also giving a new hope, giving a new light. So this is a very close comparison, and I think that the director basically based this scene on Paradise Lost. So let's move on to certain characters that bear similarity to the characters in Paradise Lost. So the first one that we are going about is the character of Roy Batty, who is the leader of the replicants. So a quick profile of him, he's the leader of the Renegade Nexus 6 replicants, and he's portrayed as the film's main antagonist. So he was activated in January 8, 2016, which in accordance with the film, in the film, he's basically 3 years and 10 months old, so he does not have long to live because they live only for 4 years. So he's also more intelligent, and he's a highly skilled combatant and with superhuman strength. And also throughout the film, we can see that he's trying to develop emotions. He's trying to learn the meaning of life, and he in the end we see that it's a futile quest that he goes on to seek more about life. So basically, we can see that there are a lot of similarities that are present between Satan of Paradise Lost and Batty, which can be seen in Blade Runner. So basically, the first one is both of them are leaders. So Satan is the leader of the rebel angels, as shown in Paradise Lost, and Batty is the leader of the rebel replicants who mutinied against in the off-world colonies. Also, we can see that both of them seek to achieve a status which makes them equal to their creators. So basically, Roy Batty, this is Tyrell, who is basically the creator of all the androids. So basically, God is like the creator of Satan. So both of them like try to achieve a status which is equal to their own creators. And also we can see that in the film, after they return to Earth, in order to search his maker, Roy sets like on a course of destruction. So he like destroys everything that is present in his path. He kills like human beings without any remorse. Similarly, we can see that like Satan turns his eyes to Earth and he decides to like defeat God by like corrupting his unique creation, which is humans. So basically, we can see that this is like a correlation that is kind of existing between the two. Like Satan wants to corrupt humanity, and Roy Batty tries to like destroy humans in his quest to search his maker. Also, so in this film, like after watching this film, a very important question raised in my mind, like who is the real hero of the film? So as in Paradise Lost, Satan has like Milton portrays Satan as a very heroic character in the first few books. So he gives like heroic speeches. He comes out as a very valiant warrior, a fighter. He has a lot of confidence. Of course, he like degrades both physically and mentally as the book progresses. But in the end, we see that he has been banished to hell. So and still he builds up his confidence and tries to fight. So basically, at the end of the book, we try and sympathize with him. And it's a very ambiguous question, but it can be raised that whether Satan was the real hero in Paradise Lost. Similarly, in the film, we can see that Batty basically his only reason to come back to Earth is to gain emotions, to learn more about life. And so that's his main goal. And of course, he has been shown like the villain, like he has been displayed like very violent, very dark, and like a typical villain. But in the end, we see that in the last scene, it's like he's trying to chase Deckard and trying to kill him. But there's this very big plot twist that we see that Deckard is like hanging from a ledge, and Batty could have killed him easily. But instead, he decides to save his life. And after that, he like goes on to like tell a very big monologue in which he says that his memories will be lost like tears in rain. So this is like the transformation of Batty into a good character, and we see that he has understood the true meaning of life, and he has understood like what it means to be good. So in the end, after he dies, we like start sympathizing with him, and like, it can be asked the same question can be raised in this case, that whether Batty was the real hero in the film, just like the question which is raised in Paradise Lost as like whether Satan was the real hero.
So now we're going to move on to the character of Rick Deckard, who was the Blade Runner that was pulled out of retirement to hunt down the escaped replicants. So quick profile on him. He, like I said, he's a former Blade Runner, and he was brought out of retirement to hunt down Batty and his crew because it's a very special case, very high profile, and he's the best of the best, supposedly. And he begins kind of really selfish, self-centered, really only thinks about himself, and he really doesn't care much for android life. He doesn't see any value in it. And, that's kind of the stereotypical cop, just trying to hunt the bad guy, kill him, end of story. But as the story progresses, you begin to see that he starts to gain more emotion. He really starts to feel for some of the characters. And as he hunts down the replicants one by one and kills them, he kind of like feels bad. He's feeling guilty. He feels like he's killing another person. He's ending lives. So he begins to kind of begins to empathize with the replicants that he's hunting down. So Deckard can be compared to Adam from Paradise Lost. So a lot of the similarities that exist, one being they both begin kind of feeling lonely, hollow, and alienated, and in Paradise Lost, Adam, being put into paradise, is alone and really doesn't find any fulfillment in that until God brings him Eve. And similarly, as we'll find out later, there's another character named Rachel who is introduced into Deckard's life, who begins to really fill his life and give it more meaning. So there's that parallel we begin with. Moving on through the story, we see that they were both tempted into acts of rebellion. So Rachel, as Logan will talk about later, is a replicant, and Deckard, in the end of the story, is brought into an act of rebellion and runs off with her. Similarly to Adam being tempted into the act of rebellion of eating the forbidden fruit because Eve asked him to do it. So both characters of Adam and Deckard are tempted into rebellion against the law or the creators by a love interest. Going on from that, we see that both leave their paradise. So in this case, you can think of Los Angeles as paradise, as odd as that sounds. They both leave basically where they were, where they began, to seek out new life and basically create, a new race or a new, beginning for themselves outside of their paradise. Adam and Eve left paradise after being banished, and Deckard runs off with Rachel at the end of the film to seek out a new life with her. And then the last one is both are questioned as heroes of their respective stories. So as Soham already alluded to with Batty as Satan, it kind of is brought into question throughout Blade Runner whether Deckard is really a hero. You know, he's brought in as a protagonist. You know, he's hunting the bad guys. He's supposed to be, you know, doing good. But as you go through it, you realize that in several scenes, Deckard kind of acts in cold blood. He shoots a replicant in the back who's literally just running for her life. And, you know, it kind of brings into question what kind of person would shoot a woman in the back who's, you know, terrified for her life. And he does it with, you know, almost no remorse in the beginning. And additionally, he has several opportunities where he's trying to hunt down Batty, and he shoots him without hesitation, trying to kill him. But in the one instance where Deckard's life is on the line, Batty actually, as Soham talked about, saves Deckard. So again, you kind of bring into question, is Deckard really a hero where he's just kind of ruthlessly killing people? He doesn't give it much thought until like the very end of the movie where he kind of has this turnaround. So you kind of bring into question throughout the plot, is he really the hero or is Batty? So we'll move on to Rachel.
Alright, so I'm going to talk about the character of Rachel, who can be compared to Eve in Paradise Lost. Who is Rachel? Rachel is a special replicant created by Eldon Tyrell, who is we can see as the god figure in this city. She doesn't know she's a replicant until Deckard tests her with this empathy test, like that measures the eyes and stuff. Emotionless, Deckard. Deckard is so emotionless that he treats Rachel very coldly until Rachel saves Deckard from a replicant that's trying to kill him. Deckard then begins to feel strong emotions for Rachel, and he's given orders to terminate her, but he decides to go against those orders because of his love for her. Rachel. As Eve, Rachel does not have a father or a mother because she was created as a replicant. She was created by Tyrell, who is the creator of all replicants and a god of this world, this dystopic future. She is the one to make Deckard fall, you could say, because she induces emotions in him that he's never felt before, like the strong emotion of love. Deckard leaves Los Angeles for his love of Rachel, which can be compared to Adam leaving for Eve because he loves her so much. When Rachel gains knowledge about her replicant status, she cries, which kind of makes Deckard empathize with her, which can be seen as the domino effect of when Eve kind of like gives the apple to Adam to eat. And they leave, and then the next picture you can see that they leave the dystopic Los Angeles created by Tyrell as a result of their knowledge. That's that.
Okay, so why is this relevant?
Films are like the most used form of media nowadays. I feel like most of us in this room are more likely to watch a movie or a TV show than to maybe read a book or read some. I hate to say it, but it's just more likely. So,
so filmmakers use books as inspiration, since probably you all watch the movies except Dr. Higginbotham probably read the book. They use it to take ideas and put them in their own movies, and I feel like that enhances the movie experience. Which, like I said, if you watch Pleasantville or Blade Runner with the intent of connecting it to Paradise Lost, it really enhances the experience. It makes you realize that the director actually did read Paradise Lost, and he was actually trying to portray Milton in his work.
Themes of Paradise Lost are applicable to different stories. You can see that after reading Paradise Lost and watching like all these kind of different movies, that Paradise Lost is not just a poem written hundreds of years ago, that it's relevant in today's world. And that's kind of important, because even though people are not reading the poetry as much as they would have been before, you can still gain that knowledge just by watching a movie.
So yeah, they have. So this shows that Milton still has a very strong effect on the world, even in different kinds of media and in movies. So yeah, that's our presentation. If you have any questions, we'll take them now.
Any questions?